Hey, Marvel Strike Force. I'm coming in here today to talk about defenses. I kind of think that defenses have kind of fallen by the wayside, and it's really getting felt. I really saw it in my last Cosmic Crucible, and I want to talk about defenses in a couple different lights. I want to talk about how I think the game needs resilient characters again, how I think there's ways to incorporate good defensive teams without feeling toxic. Because when I talk defensive teams, what comes to your head? I'm sure what comes to your head is like Alpha Flight, Heroes for Hire, Gamma, Darkhold. Some of these really, Absolute A Force we'll even throw in there, are just some really toxic teams, right? Gamma where it just obliterated you in the first turn and didn't take damage, or Darkhold that just didn't take debuffs ever, or Heroes for Hire that just infinitely revived. Like, there were some things that happened in there, and they one-shot your characters. I don't think those are the kind of defenses we want. Um, I think when I'm thinking defenses, I'm thinking enabling good characters. I'm enabling things like our mythic characters. But I want to jump in and show you a couple matches first, and then we'll go jump back into that. Let's go watch a couple from this Crucible. And this is why I think that we need defense characters. First up is Starjammers versus Annihilator Sus. And just watch how fast this match ended. It's kind of crazy. This is Gear Tier 20 Annihilator Sus, and Sus instantly died. Gore is also G20, and Gore died on the second hit. Lolandra hasn't... No one's touched Thanos, he's Gear Tier 20. Lolandra took him to 20%. And that's kind of the state of the game in a lot of areas. We basically went 6 turns, I think is what we did. And that's kind of crazy. And the only person that actually got a turn was the Gladiator. Basically the only resilient character in the team. I have one that's worse though. My opponent has Xavier. He's a huge account. He's 270 million TCP, and he deserved to win. I'm not complaining that I lost. I 100% knew I lost walking into him, and he took in such a extreme team into my team. He took Xavier, Phoenix Force, Mephisto, APOC. And let's go watch that one. These are aura modifiers. This is absolutely our best of the best characters. It deserves to one-shot my team. What I'm saying, though, is defense is so gross right now that he's not even willing to put Xavier on defense right now. He just put everything together. And as you see what's going on, everything's just getting one-shot. There's no interaction going on here. I think my team finally takes a character turn on the second to last turn there. Yeah. And at this point, it's a 2v5. Like, at that point, you just consider it over. APOC hasn't even taken a turn yet. APOC doesn't even Empowered Punch in this matchup. That's how much damage happened. Phoenix didn't even go Dark Phoenix, but, like, it didn't matter. He could push whatever button he wanted and it was going to end. It just didn't matter. And I don't think that's very healthy. Like, if I saw that kind of matchup again, I probably just wouldn't attack in Crucible. Like, that's kind of... I'm like, I have no hope and faith at all that anything's going to happen there. He just auto-wins. It's wasting my time to even attack. But I'm okay with him winning. What I want to see is he's got a crazy defense up that tests my roster, and it's fun to try to beat it if it's possible. And that's not what I got. Instead, what I got was I got the one-shot everything. I didn't drop a room. I cleared his entire floor. And he cleared his entire floor. But he cleared it better. So, he wins, which I knew that was going to happen. But just that was the whole thing, is like, defense didn't matter. It doesn't matter that he's a monster account because I still clear him. There's still... Both sides have teams that didn't even take damage. And that's a problem. There's full health bars at the end of some of those on both sides. And I think that's part of the problem with Overpower too. I think Overpower is trying to fix stuff in the wrong way. And I think that we can fix it in a better way. I think what the game needs again is to get more back to balance. It needs defense again. And when I say defense, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but Darkhold, Gamma, Heroes for Hire, that kind of stuff, I think is too extreme. Um, let's start with war. How would I make defense and war without being over the top but still being relevant? I think you build four-man defense teams, and you leave one slot for a mythic character. That limits how much craziness they can have. They can't make the team like what's on my screen right now, where you've got the Alpha Flight or the Absolute A Force and two mythic characters. You do not want those kind of teams. It's toxic. It's obnoxious to deal with. I think that's too extreme. So what you do is you make four locked characters. It requires all four characters for the team to function. Otherwise, the team doesn't function. And then you leave one flexible slot. And this team is going to naturally be more resilient. They're going to be more characters like Miss Marvel or Daredevil Classic or Gladiator, things like that. They're teams that are supposed to help enable like a mythic character to flourish. They should still be a good team, but they're going to be more. They're going to be a little more extreme because they want to have a more lock and key solution. You shouldn't be able to walk in there with any Joe Schmo's team. This team should be one of the top tier teams. This should be, you have to plug in a mythic character in offense, maybe bring in a top tier, war counter like Liberty, something like that. I'm just using examples, by the way. This is not saying, hey, this is how it should work, but when they give you it, and maybe there isn't a counter initially. When this team comes out, maybe there's no counter, and it takes you 2 taps to get through it with multiple mythic characters. That's okay, because then they create the situation where the new team they're selling you, which they sell us, it is what it is, now has somewhere to go. It now has like something to be excited about, which I don't really think we had with Vigilante, and I think they could have done it with Vigilante too, but they had to have done things beforehand. Vigilante's pretty good at dealing with some of these slower teams. It's really good at dealing with Orcus. I think of Orcus. Orcus kind of fell off the radar 3 to 6 months ago, we'll say. It got countered by Night Stalkers immediately, and went from being an amazing defense team to being a subpar defense team, right? Some people argue that it was the best filler team we had in Crucible, but for the most part, it just got ran over. What could have happened, and this is the other solution that I think would be really good for War, is make one new character for the Orcus team. That one new character is very team locked. It requires five Orcus characters to function. There is no putting in a mythic character. There's no flexing the team. Maybe you can flex within the team what it's got, but that's all you can do. And what this type of character should do is bolster its stats significantly. Like, I'm talking like 100% more health and armor kind of thing. Maybe not armor, but 100% more health. Maybe it also takes reduced damage till the second turn. Something along that lines. It should have some resilient mechanics. Maybe it helps shut down some of the hard counters like Night Stalkers. So Night Stalkers no longer function as well as they should. And Vigilante's not out yet, so this team's hard to deal with for a month or two, and then Vigilante comes out and kind of solves the problem. And it's okay if it solves the problem, because maybe Vigilante, they release a new defense team down the road, and Vigilante also wants to go in that team. So now we have 2 teams that Vigilante wants to go into, and which one do you take it into? That's okay. That's good. I think that's a good problem to have. Creates like this macro environment where you got to solve it. And I think that can be good. Now, I think the key there is it needs to be a 5-man lock team. You can't flex in a mythic character and make it some super team. The other part of this is I think it's time for the mythic characters to not stink. You look at our mythic characters. We have 10 of them now. That's pretty great. I would love for us to get to the point where we could have 5 on defense and 5 on offense in War. That would be amazing. And we're so far off that. We've got probably 4 or 5, I would say, that are playable right now. Occasionally 6, but the other 4 are pretty dead. And I think it's time that we revive these characters. They should feel playable. They're mythic characters for a reason. We shouldn't have characters that look like Doom and Ultron right now. So it's time to revive the mythic characters. It's time to revive war defense, but in a healthy way. Let's talk Crucible defense. I think the way we revive Crucible defense is through smaller teams. I think you do it with 2-man teams, 3-man teams. And the reason I say 2 and 3-man teams is Crucible is the tip of the top of your roster. You want to use more of your mythic characters. You also want to be able to use. You want to be able to combine these teams as they reach the end of their shelf life, or maybe they make a super team initially until you want to split them back up. The reason I think 3 and 2 is good is because, one, it makes that Eternals Tangled Web solution, which I think was pretty healthy for the game overall. It also creates a situation where maybe you want to do three person plus a pre-taunt and then your mythic character, or you want to do double mythic character, depending on what the team does. I think that it's a nice number to deal with. I think there's solutions to that, and I think that's healthy. And again, these are defense-only characters. These are not offense, defense. You can't. They're not. They're when they make these things, it's supposed to help bolster the defense on it, and it doesn't have to be the absolute best character in the world. What we want to do with Crucible is we want to get back to the situation where Room 1 and Room 6 aren't chasms apart, or Room 1 and 2. Like, right now, it feels like we have maybe one room that actually does something in Crucible, and Room 5 through 6 is kind of filler. And we want to get back to that situation. Maybe when a defense team comes in, it's the premier team, but as it kind of goes through its life, it slowly, gets worse and worse, but it's still playable. I shouldn't go through my Crucible roster and look at my defense and go, that's all war offense teams. That's kind of awkward. So that's kind of my thought process on it, is I think that would be healthier for the game, and it creates a situation where it builds more hype on new teams. And the big thing is printing resilient characters. We need characters in the game that can actually sustain a barrage. If Blade ults you, you shouldn't just be 3 dead characters. You should have some characters on defense that can take a hit. And it's okay if they don't one-shot you back. I think that's perfectly fine. I think where we've gotten kind of unhealthy is we're killing things too fast. Our time to kill has gotten extremely crazy between Overpower and G20 and all these multipliers, blah, 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 blah. The other thought process, too, is war. I think it might be time for the 100 or the 30% damage bonuses for teams to go away. I think that might be tired. If we're doing these 5-man teams, do we really need that mechanic? I don't know. But the idea is to be a little bit more prescribed, but still offering some theory crafting. I think in Crucible you'll be a little more extreme, but I think that's the whole idea of the game mode. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Would you think that doing things like this would be good? Let me know.